Good morning, everyone. I see the attendees are still rolling in, so I'll take a few more seconds here to pause while everyone's dropping into our panel session for this morning. It looks like we're already breaking a record for a Friday morning presentation for the Transportation Safety Conference up at Penn State, even if virtually. But again, welcome to our morning session. Today's panel session is a very poignant topic that's going on in the industry right now today for a multitude of various reasons. And our topic today is on alternative delivery and innovative finance. Today we have three of the panelists. We have Neil Raup representing the Pennsylvania Turnpike. He'll be discussing the design, build, delivery of a fiber optic network across the Turnpike's system. Followed up, we'll have Mr. Mike Bonini, he's director of the P3 office for PennDOT, talking about projects that are going on there today and what the future holds for the PennDOT P3 office. And then we're going to close it out with Mr. Sam Baydoun. He's from the Build America Bureau. He has a lot of knowledge around the tools of the financing elements that are available from the federal government. And primarily, I guess, after listening to Neil and Mike talk, he's going to share the combination to the safe for those guys to get some free money so they can get some projects done. So welcome to the panel 7C for Friday morning on alternative delivery and innovative finance. Just one quick housekeeping session. We're going to roll through all three presentations first. The Q&A box is available and we will address all questions asked at the end of today's session. Neil Raup has a pre-recorded session. So Neil, please go ahead and launch your session on the design build for the fiber optic network, and then we'll go from there.
All right, thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. We'll get started here and see what we have. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission Fiber Optic Network portion of this session. My name is Neil Raup. A little background on myself. I formerly served as the Total Reconstruction Program Manager for the last 10 years. I recently retired from the Commission and have been brought back on board as a consultant to continue supporting the fiber optic network projects. In my session today, I plan to give you a quick overview and objectives of our fiber projects, look at the alternative delivery methods utilized, and identify some of the lessons learned as we went through the process. And finally, an update on the status of the projects. Here are some of the Commission objectives for this effort. We needed to transition our current method of collecting data across our system through the microwave towers to a fiber optic network. The microwave system has become antiquated, capacity is an issue, parts are difficult to obtain, and maintenance costs are increasing. We have limited capital available for supporting this project, so another objective was to leverage that capital as much as possible, but stay within maximum limits available. With the rapid growth of technology across the transportation industry, we wanted to make sure that we address long-term bandwidth needs and capacity, as well as being able to access that network for those future needs. We also see the value of our right-of-way and being able to partner with the private sector to help capitalize on that value and reduce costs to the Commission. And lastly, we wanted to bring a private partner on board to help manage telecommunications type infrastructure and any risk associated with those types of systems. Concerning objectives from a private sector viewpoint, we learned that scope alignment was critical with the commercialization potential. The delivery of this type of infrastructure was critical to the overall project. It needed to be in sync with the market timing to capitalize on commercial needs of the private sector. Another variable was being able to understand and comfortably predict the operation and maintenance cost, as well as any capital expenses needed to commercialize the system. Investors also needed to be comfortable with and have an acceptable rate of return on the project. And again, shared risk was a concern. For these types of projects, risks need to be placed where it can best be managed or mitigated, and it could be on the private side or the public sector, depending on the risk involved. So what requirements do we have as far as actual infrastructure needed? The Commission was looking to install a system with at least 288 strand fiber cable, along with spare conduits for additional fiber cables in the future. We also required the connection of 100 plus demarcation sites. Interchanges and maintenance sheds are typical examples of a demarcation site. Junction boxes were to be placed every 2,400 feet along the system to provide network accessibility for future ITS devices and commercialization. We also are looking for a fiber system operation and maintenance partner to support Commission operations and commercialize the system. Initial term of the contract was intended to be 35-year term. So let's look at some of the delivery methods considered as part of the project. One alternative considered was to lease bandwidth from local providers such as AT&T or Verizon. This option could easily be implemented and will transfer risk to the private sector. However, we would have annual costs for each location with limited control over future increases. Also, it limits the flexibility for future applications and connectivity. Another option considered was Commission project either as a design build or design bid build. We would have exclusive ownership and control. Funding for capital expense and operation and maintenance costs will be funded solely by the Commission. A drawback with this scenario will be the need for the Commission to add additional resources to conduct the operation and maintenance support. Also, the benefit of commercialization are not realized with this alternative. The third and last alternative considered was the P3 procurement process. We looked at using the design, build, finance, operate, and maintain format, which would allow a private sector partner to generate revenue from the right-of-way. We would also be able to accelerate the delivery of the project and enable innovation. The shared risk component was also available with this alternative. Okay, so give me a drum roll for the selected alternative. You guessed it, P3. So what was part of the P3 process? The P3 process included several phases as shown here. The industry input phase, the request for qualification phase, the request for proposal phases, and finally the selection. The Pennsylvania P3 Board approved the PTC project in May 2016. The industry input phase included a forum with industry partners in January 2017. Several project informational memos and requests for information were issued during this initial phase as well. PTC received strong interest from multiple market sectors including dark fiber, lit fiber, empty ducts, and wireless, including cell towers and small cells. This also included input from market sounding studies and meetings with potential proposers. Requests for qualifications were issued in July 2017, and 6 statements of qualification were received September 2017. From the list of statements of qualification, 4 teams were shortlisted for the RFP phase. During the RFP phase, we conducted one-on-one meetings with shortlisted proposers, received feedback on scope, received feedback on subsidy required from PTC, and after several rounds of the draft proposals, we issued the final request for proposals in October of 2018. Technical and financial proposals were due beginning of December. Several of the shortlisted teams dropped out, and we ended up receiving 2 proposals from the remaining teams. The results of this process were somewhat unexpected. Both proposals received exceeded the maximum Commission contribution for the project. Therefore, both of the proposals were considered non-responsive, and as a result, the decision was made to cancel the P3 procurement. We felt that there were more cost-efficient options available and proceeded with our Plan B. So what lessons did we learn from this process? As we walked through the execution of the P3 process for this project, we realized a few challenges and opportunities. First, we realized early on that this was a pathfinding project. By that I mean combining the fiber aspect in telecommunications with P3 project on a transportation facility. We were forging new ground and didn't have a track record of information to follow. Second, we attempted to seek federal funding through INFRA grant program, which would have required us to follow the NEPA process for any environmental needs on the project. This also extended the timeline out for the project and created some challenges in preparing the request for proposals to incorporate any NEPA requirements. At the end of the day, we did not get the federal funding, so those requirements were removed from the proposal. As we went through the one-on-one meetings with the pre-qualified teams, we had great discussions and were able to identify areas of opportunity that could be realized based on the makeup of their teams. Initially, we felt that the P3 process could give us the accelerated delivery we needed for the project. However, once we got into it and decided to pursue federal funding, along with extended one-on-one discussions, the accelerated delivery ended up not happening, and other procurement methods would prove to be better from a schedule perspective. The Commission, as part of its total reconstruction program, had been installing conduit within the roadway for the past 10 years. We had approximately 100 miles of conduit installed, and the idea was this conduit could be utilized for fiber. However, when we began discussions with various teams, there was some hesitation on utilizing that conduit, not knowing the condition and capacity of what was installed. We ended up proofing a 17-mile sample of existing conduit and found that a good portion of that was not usable. This was an unforeseen challenge we experienced as part of the project. Alignment with the market and demand and market timing was probably one of the biggest challenges we've experienced on this project. Timing from notice to proceed until infrastructure was available for use became a big challenge for commercializing this type of infrastructure. We learned that due to the nature of the telecommunications market, it was difficult, if not impossible, to identify and commit potential customers more than a year before the actual infrastructure was available. Proposer interaction ended up being more involved than expected because of these unique challenges. Innovations through the use of alternative technical concepts was incorporated into this process. We knew that incorporating telecommunications infrastructure in a highway right-of-way would be one of the unique challenges. The design needed to accommodate both the transportation facility from an operational and maintenance perspective, as well as telecommunications system, and not jeopardize functionality of either infrastructure. We felt it necessary to utilize the ATCs and innovation to accomplish that, a compatible design. Risk allocation was a key item to consider as we worked through the RFP phase. Here you can see over a dozen different key risks that we needed to deal with as part of the process. The goal was to have the risk mitigation assigned to the appropriate entity best suited for dealing with that risk. Some of these were typical risks and others were unique to this project. So what did Plan B look like? Based on the knowledge that we gained during the P3 process, Plan B was developed and consists of taking Commission's capital committed for the project and developing design-build contracts to advance the construction of fiber in the eastern part of the state, from Harrisburg to the Delaware River Bridge on the main line and up the northeast extension from Mid-County to Clark Summit. The design was based on what was learned during the P3 procurement. The design consists of two 288-strand fiber optic cables and two empty conduits for Commission's use, one 288-strand cable, and three empty conduits for commercial potential, for approximately 220 miles. The Western network, which is everything west of Harrisburg, will utilize lease lines until the full network structure can be extended to this area. Additionally, a contract was developed to bring on a private entity to cover the operation, maintenance, and commercialization of the fiber infrastructure. Mainline Contract 1 was bid on August 21, 2019, and the Northeast Contract 2 was bid on October 30, 2019. Both contracts were awarded to Black & Veatch. Contract 1 for $44.7 million and Contract 2 for $49.7 million. Both projects are in final stages of design and are on schedule for construction completion by November of 2021 for Contract 1 and December 2021 for Contract 2. The Operations, Maintenance, and Commercialization Contract, RFP, was issued in November of 2019. Proposals were received in March of 2020 from EX Squared Technology and Plenary Broadband Infrastructure. The contract was awarded to Plenary on June 2020. The contract is a 25-year contract and includes an option for the Western network. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. Drive safe, slow down in work zones, and watch out for the other guy.
Thank you, Neil. Just go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Very good presentation. I'm sure there's some questions coming in for the back end of the session. Mr. Benini?
Hey, good morning, Alan. We'll do a sound check first. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
And can you see the presentation?
I can see the presentation.
Great, thank you. And thanks for joining us. You know, when Alan asked us to participate in this P3 session, gladly accepted. But when the time slots came out and you realized you had the Friday first session, if you correlate that back to years past and hopefully years in the future, starting next year, you realize you got stuck with the Friday 8 a.m. session. So I'm really pleased to see that, you know, at one point there were 65, hopefully even more participants in this session. We're excited to talk about what's going on in the PennDOT P3 office. You know, I'll start with this. When you think about PennDOT in our Office of Public-Private Partnerships, you automatically correlate that with our rapid bridge replacement project, and for good reasons. I mean, we were able to, at this point in time, you know, construct 558 bridges that may not have been constructed for a period of time. So, you know, there's a definite benefit that the community has gained from that. But I really want to start to focus some of this, in fact, this entire presentation, on future projects and where we're going in PennDOT and in the P3 office with our program. So first, I'll start with Partnership 81. Partnership 81 is a project where the department's looking at addressing needed safety and mobility improvements along a particular corridor on I-81 in Luzerne County, right outside of Wilkes-Barre. We're looking at trying to alleviate peak congestion and some safety hazards, safety issue that currently reside on Interstate 81. And we're hopeful that an innovative P3 delivery can accelerate the schedule and hopefully generate cost savings for the department. When we initially were looking at this, we started with, and to no surprise, a bundle of bridges. So initially, the team was looking at about 15 interstate bridges along the I-81 and I-80 corridors up in the District 4 area. And as we started to assess a particular opportunity there to replace those interstate bridges, we really started to zero in on a series of about 8 bridges right outside of Wilkes-Barre in a bifurcated section of the interstate where there are some serious issues that need to be addressed, including those bridge replacements. So as we were doing that and looking at that particular section, we started some outreach with some stakeholders, including Federal Highway Administration, and realized that we could probably extend the project limits, both especially on the southbound end of the project, to provide, again, a better traveling surface and 3 lanes and you know, mobility improvements down that portion of corridor. You know, so we went back to the board, and I'll step back. In addition to that, when we were initially looking at the bridges, we were thinking about a design, build, finance, and maintain project. But as we started to zero in on this, including narrowing that scope to looking at the bridges in the area right outside of Wilkes-Barre, we also saw an opportunity to shift the delivery model to just the design, build, finance. You know, the department has a maintenance crews and forces that can do those kind of activities. And so we're looking at this project as an opportunity, as a template, to be honest, to look at future interstate needs where we can come in and hopefully grab a private partner through a public-private partnership and have them, you know, design and build and ultimately finance this project up front, paid back over time with availability payments from the department. So what are we going to do here? We're first of all looking at reconstructing and widening I-81 to 3 lanes in each direction from the mile markers that you would have seen on the previous slide. There's a left-hand exit off of I-81 that we can improve through this public-private partnership. We can replace the you know, 8 bridges or whatever the number of bridges is that come in with that final design as a part of this project. And it gives us some opportunity to do some other safety issues in and around this corridor, which is heavily congested at peak time and, you know, at other times when, say, the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton Penguins and, you know, other events are occurring. So we received public-private partnership board approval in June of this year to proceed with a 7.5-mile interstate reconstruction and bridge replacement project as a design build finance. And so from that time, we've really started on a lot of these activities in the environmental area, highways, and then even in the contract and procurement side. You know, we've developed the purpose and need report and sent it to FHWA, have done some initial environmental activities. We've onboarded a preliminary engineer to assist the department in assessing the project. That's Michael Baker. On the highway side, you know, we're looking at traffic counts and some other analyses to really improve safety and mobility, just to provide some basic and some intro information to the development entities that would be interested in pursuing this particular project. And then on the contracting and procurement side, we've started and completed several risk assessments related to not only the technical risks associated with the project, but even some of the legal and contracting risks associated with trying a design build finance for a 7.5-mile interstate reconstruction. So now it's kind of rolling up all together, and what we're looking at is trying to develop a procurement schedule that'll be based on NEPA clearance and environmental clearance, and that's realistic and that we can meet, and we'll start to articulate that to stakeholders and industry moving forward. Parallel to that are some of the next steps that have to occur for this particular project, you know, not only on the engineering and technical side, but then on the procurement side as well. So we'll start, and we're looking at alternatives analyses to be able to provide to the private sector. We're zeroing in on that, and we started with about 8 or 9 different concepts and keep whittling that down to what we think might be, you know, an optimal solution to at least present to industry to start to generate feedback. That'll include point of access studies and other analyses that have to occur on the preliminary engineering side of the docket. And then when you go to the P3 side of the docket, you know, we're working with HNTB and Ballard Spar and our Office of Chief Counsel to really coordinate a P3 schedule that we'll be able to articulate to industry. And more than likely that looks like this, that we're going to probably in Q2 of next year start some industry outreach, maybe one-on-one meetings to again present some of our initial concepts and maybe an initial term sheet of what we think the project could entail and could look like, so that we can move forward into probably early summer sometime, or I don't know, Q3, so maybe that's midsummer, really looking at issuing that RFQ. So it'll be a 2-step process, a public-private partnership, design, build, finance, where we'll do an RFQ, we'll do a shortlist, and then we'll work with those shortlisted teams and coordinate that with the NEPA clearance to start the final RFP and ultimately push toward contract closing. So, you know, some of the timeframes I don't have identified here. We have a tentative schedule, and we're always looking at opportunities to improve that and see how we can advance the project. But we realize that there are some complexities up in this particular 7.5-mile area of I-81 outside of Wilkes-Barre, especially in that bifurcated section. So we really need to do our homework on the environmental side and on the preliminary engineering side to make sure that we're presenting what we think is the very best concept to the to the private industry. So as that project is working as a design build finance, we also got approval for a new initiative that was presented to our P3 Transportation Board in November, so about a month ago, and that is our PennDOT Pathways Major Bridges P3 initiative. So I believe Ken McLean was on the program yesterday, and Secretary Gramian was on the program on Wednesday, and I'm sure they noted and reiterated the fact that we've got an annual funding gap of about $8.1 billion that is missing to be able to maintain our assets in, both on the highway and bridge side, as well as our multimodal transportation infrastructure. So through this particular project, we're looking at alternative ways to deliver something, in a DBFOM kind of format, design, build, finance, operate, and maintain, to replace some major bridges across the Commonwealth. And so as I'm talking about this particular project, you'll note some of the successful projects in the via the pictures that were done via P3 or alternative project delivery elsewhere in the country, and that we think have application for modeling here in Pennsylvania. So the goals of the program are pretty simple. First of all, we want to accelerate the renewal of major bridges. By doing that, it intrinsically enhances public safety. We're looking at avoiding costly detours due to weight constrictions or even closures of those particular structures. And we're looking at trying to create a financially sustainable model for the Commonwealth's bridges on our interstate and expressway system. So to do that, we laid out a few principles and articulated these to the Public-Private Partnership Board. And I'd like to reiterate them, especially for those that weren't at that presentation, because they're important. And these are sort of some of the guiding principles that the department will be proceeding with as we, look to identify a development entity or a multitude or multiple development entities to perform this. So first of all, this is only going to be considered for major bridge replacements or rehabilitation projects on interstates. Through federal legislation, we're going to look to apply reasonable user fees that focus on the cost recovery of our construction, design, operations, and maintenance activities. We're looking at potentially advertising these major bridges as individual bridges, or probably more so as packages of multiple bridge bundles. We're looking at trying to geographically balance these across the Commonwealth so that not one particular area is subject to, a user fee scenario on bridge replacements and not elsewhere across the Commonwealth. And in addition to that, we'll really work hard on the public involvement and environmental justice side to try to mitigate disproportionate socioeconomic impacts. So these are some of the guiding principles that we're going to really achieve or attempt to achieve through the delivery of this particular P3 agreement. Advancing that forward, if we do that, it gives us the ability to accelerate a number of critical bridge improvements across the Commonwealth. The initiative will, by virtue of the activities that are necessary to design and build and maintain these structures, create jobs. We're looking at trying to secure a fair, sustainable, user fee-based funding source for these particular structures. And, we think through a public-private partnership, it gives us access to leverage private sector innovation and investments in PennDOT assets. So that, those assets that are owned and maintained by the department, it gives us that ability to introduce innovation, but probably just as importantly, that upfront financing and investment that the department can pay back over time. Some additional benefits of pursuing this as a P3 include hopefully efficiencies that are gained in the design and construction aspects of the project through the schedule, through potential economies of scale with materials. And at this time, we've got an opportunity to capitalize on historically low interest rates. So we think there are a lot of advantages of pursuing the P3. In addition to that, the department is working on establishing an intergovernmental agreement with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission to help us coordinate and collect the tolls, the user fees that would be collected through this particular project. So in addition to identifying a development entity, we'll be coordinating and working with that development entity or that package or those series of development entities, depending on how we lay out the bridge bundles. And they'll be coordinating with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. There's no sense for the department to create an office to do some of the user fee collections when we've got a sister state relationship with the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission. That's their bread and butter. So why not take advantage of it to create additional efficiencies here in the Commonwealth? So again, I mentioned that this project was approved by our P3 board. It was approved on November 12th of this year, so about a month ago. We're looking at a developer to come in or a series of developers to come in through a series of bundles to hopefully finance, design, construct, and then maintain these assets. We're still identifying what all of those particular components mean. but we do know that this is going to be a full-blown DBFOM concession model that will be paid through availability payments by the department. So even though a user fee is going to be generated, that the department's going to pay these back through availability payments over an extended period of time. We're trying to identify what that looks like, what that potential sweet spot is to really generate value out of this particular project. I noted that the tolls will be collected through the PTC. The department will receive that toll revenue from the Turnpike Commission, and then turn around and pay availability payments, establish negotiated rates to the developer over time. So if we're able to successfully pull this off, and with our pursuit and closing and now construction of the 558 rapid bridge replacement projects, we feel very confident that a P3 or a public-private partnership will enable us to achieve these following things. One, again, accelerate the delivery of needed improvements on our interstate system, especially with our interstate bridges. Two, we're looking at trying to create a fair, sustainable user fee-based funding source that would help us maintain and extend bridge life, for a period of time, hopefully well past the bridge design life. With the introduction of a fair dedicated user fee system, it hopefully allows other local and regional projects to advance within the department, because we're removing some of these major bridges off of our tip and off of some of PennDOT's books. So there's an opportunity there to hopefully pursue other local and regional projects, because we're going to take these major bridges and look to do them in a P3 concept. Anytime we can engage private sector, we know that the innovation and the creativity and the uniqueness that the private sector affords can be brought to the Commonwealth, can be brought to the department through this particular deal. In addition, that gives us the ability to leverage some of that upfront financing and funding for the project so that we can pay it back over time. So, those are critical key areas here. And then long term, this is really looking at ensuring continued stewardship of our transportation assets across the Commonwealth to ensure economic vitality and economic development. So, these bridges, these major bridges on the interstates, are critical links for truckers, for businesses, for residents. And so the sooner we can get them replaced, the better it'll be for the entire Commonwealth. So some of our next steps are really to identify the bridges that are going to be included in these particular packages. So we've got to look at where we are with these bridges. We've got to look at whether we need to reevaluate where we are in NEPA. We've got to go through the public involvement and public communication processes. And, we're really looking at identifying and converting projects that may have been targeted for traditional design bid build delivery model, to turn them over to a P3 and a DBFOM structure. So the department's got a lot of homework to do in the upcoming months, really to identify the structures, look at the environmental clearance activities that may need to occur, or the re-evals that may need to occur for those particular projects, start our outreach not only to stakeholders but to the communities, and move those projects forward. So you've looked at, or I've tried to demonstrate that we've got opportunities and needs both in design build finance projects or larger full term, design build finance operate and maintain projects. Moving forward, because of what I've said and what you've heard, it shouldn't be a shock to anyone to realize that the P3 office believes that our immediate opportunities are aligned with the interstate program. It's no secret to anyone that we have limited resources. That is both on the state side, on the Commonwealth side, with our motor license fund and some of the news that's been generated over the last few weeks. Even on the federal side, the federal uncertainty with the Highway Trust Fund and any kind of long-term federal legislation, and ultimately the pandemic's impacts on travel and what that's meant to not only the motor license fund, but the gas tax, even at the federal level, and the loss of revenues there. So we think public-private partnerships and alternative deliveries should be another tool in the department's toolbox to deliver not only interstate reconstruction or rehabilitation projects, but bridge projects as well. There's a well-documented statewide need for this. The department has an interstate steering committee that works with the MPOs and works with executives in the department. So, there's a good need and a documented need of, lists of projects that need to occur. P3s, intrinsically or by design are meant to accelerate delivery because we're hopefully leveraging investment and innovation that can deliver a project sooner rather than later. And there are a variety of program options that I think we can look at. So we've delivered sort of similar bridges through the Rapid Bridge Replacement Project. We're going to be pursuing design build finance opportunities where we can, for interstate projects that are unique, kind of like the 7.5 miles up on I-81 in District 4. We've got major bridges that could be replaced through P3 and our major bridge P3 initiative that we're looking to do. And then finally, I think other opportunities are on the table as well. And, it's probably time to start looking at other creative solutions, managed lanes, congestion pricing, other road user charges. I think all of these are going to be on the table moving forward, especially with, the hesitancy at the federal level to provide some long-term sustainable funding. So if we're going to meet the challenge of improving our interstate system, we've got to look at these opportunities. And we think P3 is one of the tools that the department and our executives should consider. It's not the solution for every particular project, but I guess the good news is there's enough needs where P3s in the future would be and should be warranted. So with that, I thank everyone for their time, and I apologize if I went over a little bit, and I'll turn it over to Alan and Sam.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mike. And I think this is a great presentation as you guys flip over and Sam, come on in. As coming from Neil and then going into you talking about the various ways of alternative delivery and the back end with the bridges with alternative funding resources. And then we have Sam, who's going to be maybe talking about what are the innovative financing tools that are also available to couple with these project delivery opportunities. Sam?
Yes, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mike. And just want to check here real quick. I start sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let me try again.
There we go. We see your Zoom screen.
Yes. Give me a second, please. And I'll get up my presentation here. How about now?
Yeah, we can see it. And your camera on your, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invite to be here. It's a pleasure to be here and talk a little bit about the Build America Bureau. Just in the way of brief introduction, I work for the U.S. DOT. Our office is under the Office of the Secretary. And our purpose in the Build America Bureau is to provide financial technical assistance for project sponsors and enable the project delivery in alternative ways or innovative financing ways. So the Build America Bureau was established in July 2016. And traditionally, or in the old way of doing business, we provided credit assistance under the TIFIA and RIF programs, and those programs traditionally were housed with the Federal Highway and FRA, Federal Railroad Administration. But with the creation of the office, it kind of brought both programs together in one office, and also the Bureau was given the charge of allocating the private activity bonds, um, uh, funding activities, whatever you may want to call that. But the whole idea is to provide financing or federal credit assistance to the projects. And most recently, we also, and I will share that with you here in the next couple of slides, added the technical assistance. Technical assistance has always been part of the TIFIA, but really because of the resources that we had, limited resources that we had at the office, we have not really done too much in the way of technical assistance. And I came to the Bureau about a year ago trying to do more of technical assistance in terms of outreach, lessons learned, best practices, and helping project sponsor developing the projects. All the activities that you heard Neil and Mike talk about, all the due diligence activities in terms of financial feasibility and technical feasibility in advancing the project. And so we have been working since then on trying to enhance that portion of the service in the office. But traditionally, like I said, you know, we were a financing entity that that normally started the interaction or the project sponsors or the borrowers started reaching out to the office through issuing a or submitting a letter of intent once they have developed their projects and figured out what project they want to deliver, the purpose and need, and conducted some due diligence activities in terms of technical feasibility and some level of financial feasibility and bankability of project. They approached the office and to look into you know, the credit assistance under TIFIA or REF. But most recently, like I said, you know, we started we started looking at how could we assist on more delivery projects and reaching out to the entities that have not really done business with us before. You know, before we had, yeah, excuse me, we had the traditional large DOTs that they had highway projects, and they know us, they know what we offer, and they came to us and asked for credit assistance. But now we're taking more proactive approach and reaching out to entities, municipalities and states that have not really done business with us, and trying to better educate them on our services and products and how we could be of help and assistance in delivering and financing their projects. So everything to the left, that was the old way of doing business. Once the Bureau got established, we were concentrating more and more on the initial stages and reaching out to prospective project sponsors and borrowers. So our mission at the office is really to deliver more good projects faster. A point of clarification here is we don't deliver the project, but we do help and assist in delivering the projects. We work with the project sponsors once they have identified you know, what they wanted to do, how they want to finance their projects, and they need help in making the project bankable and financially feasible. That's what we do. Mostly innovative delivery and innovative financing. P3 is innovative delivery method, but we're not really just looking to finance P3 projects. We also finance traditional projects delivered under design but build methods or design build method as well. And we are always eager and ready to assist you know, any type of project. It doesn't have to be just highway. You know, we finance transit projects, we finance rail projects, And we are actively engaged from the beginning if we are asked to help in the early stages of project development and figuring out what of our products and services we can provide to assist in delivering transportation projects. So I mentioned the TIFIA program. TIFIA program has been around for a while, since 1998. The product itself, it has a lot of advantages for project sponsors and borrowers to finance the projects. It looks into repayment term of up to 35 years. Some of that could be deferred during the construction period, for example, for 5 years, which means the repayment could take probably about 40 years, including the deferred period. And one of the advantages that we have under TIFIA is there are no prepayment penalties. It's a little bit different than debt financing, for example, when you go to the bond market. So we can finance under TIFIA 33% of eligible project cost. And this is by policy. Actually, the legislation allows us to deliver or finance up to 49% of the project, but by policy, we are limiting the project cost for the TIFIA program at 33%. And we work with the borrowers to customize the product for their needs, with the understanding not all P3 projects or alternative delivery projects are the same. Each one of them is different. So we are able to customize the financing option according to the project's requirement. Also, we do offer, instead of direct loans, we offer guarantees and lines of credits to finance a project. As you can see, we provide low interest rate. Today, the interest rate is 1.61% for a 35-year loan. That's very, very low and attractive rate as compared to what it was a few years back. A subset of the TIFIA program, and you'll be able to customize to smaller projects that they're not the big P3s, the $400, $500 or $1 billion projects. These are up to 1 million, 100 million, between 10 and 100 million. In those cases, we can finance up to 49% of eligible project cost. And an added benefit, we can finance half of the treasury rate. So we, as of today, we're looking at 0.82%. And in some cases, we do waive the borrower fees. Eligibility, any eligible projects in terms of roadway, bridges, transit facilities, transit-oriented development, passenger rail and bus. Eligible projects are state, tribal, counties, municipalities, transportation agency, transportation improvement districts, private entities that can borrow money if they're into the into some of the projects that that provides public benefits, transportation benefits. The RIF Express, similar to TIFIA, but it's mainly geared toward rail projects. And just like TIFIA, it offers flexible terms, no prepayment penalty. And the difference with the RIF is we can finance up to 100% of eligible project cost. The way we are able to do that is we charge a risk premium to the borrower, or we can consider collateral. And we also can adjust the interest rate based on some of those requirements. Eligible projects here again, rail facilities, rail agencies, transit-oriented development. Some of the borrowers that have borrowed from us, of course, state railroads, government agencies, Amtrak, and some joint ventures as well. I'll skip over that slide because it talks specifically about some transit and TIFIA and RIF loans. But I'll talk about something that we have been experiencing lately to show that we are very flexible and we're ready and eager to help our clients that need financing to deliver transportation projects. With the COVID-19 challenges, we have been experiencing requests for refinancing the existing loans to lower the financing expenses and take advantage of the low interest rate that currently exist. So there are ways for us to refinance the existing debt if it offers expanded capacity for eligible projects, or we can refinance outstanding debt, in terms of improvement to help acquire or improve or rehabilitate, the facilities or equipment. And also we can defer, and we have been able to defer some of the debt service on RIF loans for up to 1 year. So just the point here is we are flexible and true to our mission to help deliver and finance projects. Private activity bonds, it has been a very successful program for us. I must admit here that we were allocated for $15 billion since the beginning of the program, and we have reached our capacity. We're almost at capacity, unless if we have new authorization to expand. This is where it stands right now, close to $15 billion. Technical assistance. This is something that I've been working on since coming to the Bureau last year in terms of helping project sponsors and borrowers and state and government, local government agencies to develop their projects, talk about lessons learned and best practices, how to look at alternative project delivery and how to finance projects in innovative ways. And we work very closely with state DOTs and localities and transportation agencies on putting webinars and workshops together. We had intended to deliver a P3 webinar in Pennsylvania when COVID hit, and we're still looking to work with Mike and his team on delivering some of the trainings in Pennsylvania. All of that is done at no cost to the technical assistance, is done at no cost to the borrower or the sponsor of the public sponsor. So that's briefly who we are and what we do, and hopefully, we can work with the Pennsylvania Transportation Department to deliver more projects. We were very involved in the rapid bridge replacement project, and we look forward to opportunities to work with the department on some of the new projects that Mike mentioned. With that, I stop here.
Thank you very much, Sam. That was an excellent presentation on what are the tools and financing options that are out there for agency owners to get their projects delivered, whether that be using an alternative delivery method or even a traditional or conventional delivery method to find the funding to bring those projects forward and deliver those things for their customers. I know you're a little short on time, and I'll just remind everyone to use the chat, the QA box, I'm sorry, for sending in your questions. A question that I have for you, Sam, and knowing that going through the Build America Bureau and looking at some of these financing tools, it adds time to the overall project delivery process for agency owners. And you'd mentioned about early engagement. do you have like a rule of thumb or a spot in time that you think would be, you know, a right fit scenario for owners to come engage and reach out to you about looking at options?
Yeah, you know, each project, like I mentioned before, each project is different, is unique, and each project has its own challenges and requirements. What I would say, and this is, I've done this when I was at the on the DOT side when I worked for Virginia and Illinois, DOT Department of Transportation, is to start thinking about if you start doing the project screening early and developing the project and doing due diligence early on, if you have an inclination that you would require TIFIA or RIF assistance or federal credit assistance, to start that dialogue early, and in hopes that, you know, we can work with the project sponsor on developing the project and identifying those early issues. So once we figure that out and build it in the procurement process and build it into the financial structure and the best alternative delivery and financing option, we can hopefully streamline that process and make it easier when it goes to submitting letter of interest and going through the credit worthiness phase. So yeah, as much work we can do up front, that will help you know, avoid some of the delays downstream.
Thank you. We do have some questions rolling in. A question for Neil in regards to the you know, the fiber optic delivery, and you talked about, you know, the process started out with a P3 approach, and then you went through and got to a point where you had to switch it to a design build approach. How is that? How for you, you know, with the years of experience that you had delivering projects at the Pennsylvania Turnpike Commission, how has that process been for you for a fiber project, something that's a little unique or uncommon for delivering projects out of the PTC versus traditional?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the most unique part about it, because you're dealing with the telecommunications part of it and not dealing with that. I mean, over the 34 years of my career there at the Turnpike, we really didn't deal with that type of infrastructure. You have to realize too, we attempted to do this 3 or 4 times before this, before we were actually successful with it here at this point. So yeah, it did present some of the challenges in trying to understand that, working with those folks that are experienced in that type of infrastructure and developing that, and trying to understand how we can integrate that with a highway transportation facility, because it isn't something you do every day. So it is going to present challenges not only in implementing it at this point, but going forward for us along the highway as well, and being able to work around that, maintain the roadway itself and the infrastructure. They got to support each other. So it's going to be a shift in of how we look at things going forward in the future.
Thank you. Mike, this question is for you regarding, you know, P3 delivery. You know, there's some indication that there's apprehension, you know, for the department to give up some control as they go through the process of either P3 or other versions of alternative delivery. You know, what do you think from the DOT's perspective that can be done to make the agency feel more comfortable with maybe, you know, releasing some of the control that they're used to having for conventional deliveries?
It's a great question, and I saw the question in the Q&A box, and I was going to try to respond to it, but quite frankly, it would take too many words to do so. I think the essence of it is we've got to have effective communication, and we've got to demonstrate that, you know, we can deliver projects through alternative delivery, and the department has to be willing to accept the fact that, you know, we've got to let go of some of that control. It's hard. But then I challenge the private sector to be able to help us demonstrate that alternative delivery can be effective in meeting schedules, you know, creating or generating the efficiencies that we believe can occur through the alternative delivery process. So it's a great question, but I think just through communication And, hopefully over time, we can demonstrate that, P3 can be a tool. It's not the solution for everything, but it can be a tool for us to consider.
If I could add to that too a little bit, Mike, in our experience with it as the we worked through the process, although we didn't end up going to P3, but I think part of it is that going back and forth with your potential development entities and coming to agreements there and working on it and making sure that agreement that you come up with has the right mechanisms in there to make sure that whoever the development entity is or that the agency is that it meets the requirements of each. I think that going back and forth is key as part of that too, to make sure that happens.
This could also be a question for both of you. I'll pitch it to Mike first. In addition to a lot of the projects that have come out of the department with RBR, the Major Bridges Initiative, Partnership 81, there's been an element of the process allowing for unsolicited proposals to come in from the industry, and I know the Turnpike has been there's been a focus on some of those proposals that have come in. Mike, can you talk about maybe your experience with those ideas that have come through the office and how that has maybe changed some of the focus in looking at solutions for transportation?
Yeah, sure. The P3 office accepts unsolicited proposals usually twice a year in the April and October month windows. We realize that we're not the only ones with all the answers, and so we really look forward to receiving those, unsolicited proposal opportunities because there are a lot of things for us to consider. We don't know what we don't know. So when we hear those opportunities and we have those, chances for outreach, they've always been effective. We know we have interstate challenges, but in addition to that, there's a whole series of, say, non-traditional opportunities for us to pursue via, alternative delivery. And that might include things like truck parking, opportunities in the right of way. Broadband is an issue, Neil raised, and it's still a Commonwealth-wide issue. So there are other opportunities, and those unsolicited proposals that come in and give us an opportunity to look at them and determine whether something has value to be pursued.
Thank you. I know we're running a little short on time, and I think the window is going to cut off here in a few short moments. There's another question that came into the chat box regarding the Major Bridges Pathway Program. Mike, do you have any indication or knowledge about maybe when the first RFQ might be released from the department?
We don't at this time. It'll be next year at some point. It's just a matter of when for next year. We've got some outreach to do and some communication, not only internally, but externally as well with stakeholders, including Federal Highway Administration, the APC and ACEC organizations. As we do all of that, we'll conduct some outreach, probably an industry forum type day first, probably in a virtual setting, hopefully because we can get this thing moving sooner rather than later. But all of that has to play out first before we can get to that RFQ date. So the only thing I would advise is, if you're interested, you could use my contact information and we could add your name to our our listserv distribution where we send out a P3 office bulletin, on a periodic basis. That's where we'll be communicating all of these particular, project procurement opportunities.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I know Sam had to sign off early. He had another commitment with a hard stop at 12:30. I'm sure he appreciates being a part of the panel today and everyone's attendance. Again, thank you everyone for joining us on the alternative delivery and innovative finance. I think there's lots of things to look forward to or at least for Pennsylvania and the transportation industry moving forward regarding this type of delivery method and financing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.